So now I'm going to create the feet for my piece, and this is pretty big, it's pretty heavy, so I have to make sure that the feet can support the weight of this piece. So they can't be really dainty, delicate little feet that I add. They have to be strong enough to support this. One thing that could be strong enough is if I made a foot, just one single foot, and that could be a circle coil. So let me flip this upside down here. That could be a circle coil that just goes around the whole outer edge of this, and then the inside edge would be kind of recessed in. It would be deeper, and then the coil would stick up. So let me show you what I mean. If I did that, I don't think I'm gonna do that for this one. I wanna make my feet a little bit more decorative. So pretend like this was a beautiful coil. I know it's not. It would go around like that, and then we would attach it on and attach it in. I'm gonna make individual feet. I think I'm gonna do 4 because this is a pretty large base. And I'm probably gonna need a little bit more clay, so I'm gonna grab a little bit more. All right, so I'm gonna press some texture into these from the texture plate, and then I'm going to cut them so they're all the same height. That's important that we do that, because if they're different heights, then that will definitely make our piece lopsided. That looks pretty cool. That looks cool. If your clay is any thicker than 1 inch wide, so that's a little thicker than 1 inch down at the base of these, you're going to want to create a space in here. Be fired if it's solid and it's thicker than 1 inch. So I'm just going to create a little space in the bottom of each of these, just by kind of pushing my finger, a little tool in there, just to make it a little less thick so it dries out a little quicker. Are very soft right now because they're very wet clay. If I attached them right now, as soft as they are, to the base of my piece, and then I flipped my piece over, they would probably be flattened little pancakes by tomorrow. So I have 2 options. I can flip it over. I can attach them, kind of think about where I want them to go, and attach them and leave this upside down overnight. Or I can let these dry out a tiny bit, not like out of a bag, but just a little bit of the moisture kind of escape from them. So I could just let them hang out during class and let them come what we call leather hard. So if I squeeze it, it really doesn't change the shape too much. I might be able to squeeze it really hard and change the shape, but it's kind of holding its shape better. Right now they're really squishy. I'm just gonna do mine upside down so that I can show you how to scratch to attach and secure them to the base so that they don't fall off later. I would probably wait for them to dry out more if I were you, because the squishiness is going to be very difficult to work with, and you might be tempted to flip it over and then everything's gonna turn into a pancake. So, scratching to attach, we have to kind of think about where we want them to go. So I'm gonna place mine kind of equally distant apart so it supports the base close to the edge. And then once I think that's where I want them to go, I'm going to take, you can do this with a fork or this scoring tool. I'll show you both. And we are going to rough up the surface of the clay. Kind of create these little scratches in it, which creates kind of a Velcro. And we also have to score and rough up the surface of the piece that we're attaching to it. So this surface is gonna touch that surface, so they both need to be rough. What happens is it creates these little fingers that this can grab onto that, with a little extra added moisture. So I'm just really making it nice and rough, and make sure they're the same size. Make sure to make it this as big as that. And then take a little paintbrush, a little water, just dab it. Try not to get rid of those little rough spots that you created. We want those to stay. And then we're going to take our piece, we're going to press it onto our clay, kind of give it a little rock and roll, a little wiggle. So all those little rough spots are grabbing onto each other. The water's helping it happen. And then afterwards, we would go around, here, let me move these off and I'll show you. Afterwards, we would want to go around and clean up those edges. So we can do that with our finger, we can do that with this little rubber tool here. Kind of make sure that that seam is cleaned up all the way around. This will also help it be a little stronger too. Cleaning up that seam will help it create that seal. You can do it with a fork as well. I'll show you how to do that. So this is gonna go here and that's gonna go here, right? So this guy we'll do with a fork. Let's try it right here. So fork works really great if you're attaching a larger detail. And this little guy works better for smaller details. But they really work fine for both. We can scratch and rough up this surface. And here, make sure they're the same size. Make sure they're both nice and rough. Use that paintbrush just to drop a little bit of water on one side of it. And then I'm gonna take that and just gently press it on there. Kind of give it a little wiggle, a little rock and roll. That'll make sure that no air pockets are in there. Help them all wiggle out. Help all those little pieces grab onto each other. And then we can clean up around the edge here. Okay, so everything is a little too wet right now to do anything more to. So I am going to wrap this up upside down and let it kind of hang out overnight. And even if I wrap it up really well with the bag, it will still get a little bit stronger overnight. Won't be as squishy, as flexible. So then I'll be able to clean this up a bit better tomorrow if I just let it hang out. So to wrap it up, we're gonna move it over here. I'm gonna set our bag down just like we did before. This time we're kind of working upside down. So we're gonna set it down in here. Allow a little bit of extra bag kind of on the inside of this so you can press it in against the clay. Then we're going to press these sides up and around the best we can. Very gently help the plastic around each of these little feet. Very, very carefully, very gentle. That's why it's so important when we get our clay out of that cabinet. We can't see what's happening under the bag. So it's really important that we're very, very careful about touching any bags that are not ours because we don't know what's happening under here. We don't know how fragile everything is. So kind of remember where you put your clay each time. Maybe find a spot in that space on a certain shelf where you're gonna kind of decide that's where you're gonna put it each time. And then that way you're not having to fish through everybody else's to find yours. I'm just gonna gently lift it up and press that extra bag that I kind of gave myself. I'm pressing it onto the inside of the pot just so that as much of it as it can be touching inside here, touching the surface of the clay. There's a little bit of air in here, but that's okay because it's a little too wet. So a little bit of air when it's this wet will be okay. And then just give that a little twist. And then when you put it in the cabinet, if you can't tuck this underneath itself, which I could lift it up and put that little fold underneath so it doesn't untwist. Or you could press it up against the edge of the shelf so that it keeps that twist twisted and it doesn't open up.